Stories that matter. The journey of life from birth to death is an extraordinary trip, sometimes filled with great joy and excitement, but at other times filled with pain, sorrow, and disappointment. Stories That Matter shares both extremes with you. Sometimes our stories will make you feel very happy, but the journey of life is not all happiness. Other times, the journey of life will make you feel sad, for all of us have experienced both extremes. Stories That Matter will begin right after the break with a story that will touch your heart in the journey of life.
Welcome to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Deb Kluttz. And Deb, you are from Manhattan area.
I am.
And tell me about Deb.
Well, I'm executive pastor at Westview Community Church.
How long have you been the executive pastor?
I have been on that leadership team for 21 years. I became executive pastor back in 2009 and was ordained in the Wesleyan Church in 2004. So, been on the leadership team quite a while.
Yeah, you have. And where is the church located in Manhattan?
It's on Gillespie Drive, so you can see it as you're coming in from this direction, actually, headed east.
And your congregation, of course, being in Manhattan, there's lots of college students. You get a lot of college students during the school year?
You know, we have some, but it seems like the college students kind of, they'll go to different places together. So kind of in packs.
So you get a big crowd of them, or you'll only get a few who are the stragglers coming in?
That's exactly kind of how it works, which is very interesting.
Okay. And tell me specifically in the church, of course, when you're the pastor of the church, you have a lot of responsibilities. But you've had kind of an event or what do you call it? You've done a spin-off for a specific target. What is it called?
It's called the Homestead.
The Homestead?
The Homestead.
And what's that mean?
You know, it was named after the gentleman that owns the house. It's a transitional home for survivors of sex trafficking and that are 18 and older women, female. He grew up there. His father built the house, and so we, in honor of him, in recognition of him allowing us to use the house, we've called it the Homestead because it was his homestead.
All right, well, that makes sense. And so tell me about the concept of the Homestead House. What's the purpose? How does it work?
You know, there's 4 prongs to helping women who desire to exit the sex industry. There's prevention and awareness. That's the first prong. The second prong is rescue, so getting them out of that lifestyle. And the third prong is recovery. So you're helping them get back on their feet again, get off the drugs, get off the alcohol, start addressing the trauma issues, any mental illness, because prolonged drug use many times goes right into mental illness. And then there's reintegration, transitional care, and that's what the Homestead is. We're that 4th prong of helping.
How many people can stay in the house at one time?
We can have 6 ladies in the actual house.
Living there.
Living there. And we have a house manager that lives on site 24/7. And we have off-site, we've recruited families to house women who have a child still in their care. Sometimes the gals still have guardianship of at least one of their children. And so we don't want them to have to separate from their child for the period of time that they're working with us.
So when they're in the home, where does the child go, or are they in the home?
We can't have minors. We can't have minors in the homestead, so that's why we recruit families off-site for mom and child.
Oh, so the family lives together. The mom and the child lives together.
Because in Kansas there is a law that says a minor can't live in a home without the guardian or a family member present for more than 90 days. And so our program is between 6 months, a year. It can be up to 2 years, and so 90 days doesn't help us a whole lot if we had a child in the home.
Right, I understand. What's the average stay length of somebody coming into the home and going through this program?
You know, it can be, like I say, it can be up to 2 years, but the average stay, I would say, is 1 year, about 12 months.
Okay, and how many people, how many girls have been through this program so far?
We've impacted 40 ladies.
That's a lot.
So far.
That's a lot. How wide of an area are you able to reach to bring the girls into?
You know, they come from all over the country, actually. When this was being birthed, I sent out an email to many organizations and ministries all across the country that did that initial rescue and recovery work and said, you know what, we're the next step. If you have anyone that you're working with that could benefit from what we've got set up, send them our way. And so I began to get inquiries from all over the nation, from different organizations and ministries that had clients that could use what Homestead provided. And so they began to send them from New Jersey, Illinois, Kentucky, Detroit, Michigan. We've had girls, Missouri, Alaska. We even had a girl from Alaska.
Wow.
So,
How did you find about these places to even make contact with them to see if they had referrals?
just online, you know, on the internet, just looked up organizations and ministries that do rescue and recovery work with sex trafficking survivors.
Deb, we're going to put your contact information for Homestead up on the screen right now.
Okay.
And in just a second here, we're going to cut away and we're going to take a break. We're going to put that contact information up, and then when we come back from break, I want to talk to you about how you fund this and some of the
Okay.
stories that you have. You're watching Stories That Matter. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Deb Kluttz, and we're talking about the pastor at Westview Community Church in Manhattan.
Executive pastor.
Executive pastor.
Not the lead one, but
Okay, the executive pastor. And then also we started talking about Homestead, because that's what we wanted to talk about today, and it's a house where there's girls who have been caught up in the sex trafficking have a place to transition out, because you know, I'm an attorney and I'm a judge also, so I see lots of things happening, and I'm assuming that once somebody gets a hold of you and gets you into this lifestyle, it's extremely difficult to get away. And then even when you get away, where do you go? What do you do? You've lost your base, maybe your family, and you're caught into a situation that you're at probably one of the lowest points in your life, and so there's a place for them to go to in the Manhattan area, and it's Homestead. How do we put the contact information up there for the church? And you know, if there's a girl who's in this setting and she's listening to this right now, how does she make contact with you? That she can say, I can actually talk to somebody, and that person won't put me down. That person's going to talk to me and say, look, here's what you can do, here's where you can, here's the process. Can you walk them through that?
sure can. I mean, certainly she could call me at my office, and that phone number would
It'll be on the
in part of
screen.
the contact
Okay.
information, and talk directly to me and
She
ask
can
more
ask for you
questions.
personally.
She can. And then the website, you know, that's a great resource to even see what the program is about, because we're holistic. So we want to see every area of their life move forward in positive ways. I believe that each person is integrated, and so you can't just focus on one area and forget about the rest, because every area affects the other areas. So, you know, it'd be great for her to get on the website and just see the different services that are provided. And then we're faith-based. We do not force faith, but certainly we come from that perspective, because I believe that Jesus Christ is truly the one who transforms and heals the places that nobody else can touch. So we're faith-based.
And it would be a natural progression in their walk. Yeah.
So in the spiritual area is one of them that we address. You know, as I'm saying, we're holistic. So physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually. Also, the thing that sets us apart from a lot of transitional homes would be the fact that we desire to put them on a career path. So often the gals, you know, they'll get into a program or something that will help them in their recovery work, but then they can't sustain themselves financially, and they take entry-level jobs, and there's nothing wrong with entry-level jobs. In fact, many of our girls will have an entry-level job while they're, you know, in the program, but it puts you around people many times that are into things that you need to stay away from initially until you get stronger and more solid on your feet. It also doesn't sustain financially, and so we're wanting to put it on a career path, something they can be proud of, something that can sustain them financially. So many times this is done through job apprenticeships, where we will seek out a business person in the community asked them if they would apprentice one of our ladies in this particular career path, and they do so. And so it's a free education for the gal, and it's a business person that's investing in really the transformation and the whole trajectory of a life changes.
Sure.
Because, you know, there's things like dental assisting, floral design, property management, dog grooming, you know, those apprenticeable trades. We even have one that's funeral director, embalmer. No one's taken that one. I haven't figured out why, but we do have a funeral director who's willing to apprentice
Really?
a gal in that trade. Yes.
Well, you know, that's interesting. You obviously have tapped into the community and talked to some of the businesses, explained the process
That's
that you're
exactly
going
right.
through, and there's a lot of business owners or individuals who are willing to help.
That's exactly right.
And so if a young girl is caught in this situation and she makes contact with you and she says, would these people would they have pimps, or some of them would be in prostitution?
Many times.
So they've got somebody who's really watching over after them very
Right.
closely. Certainly not over them, but
Right.
after them. And so if they make the contact with you and they said, look, I've got a 3-year-old, how in the world, I can't leave my 3-year-old and come to that home, so now what happens to me?
You know, a lot of times a gal who is still in the lifestyle being trafficked, they wouldn't come directly to the homestead because it's transitional care. So most likely, if drugs and alcohol have been involved, and many times it is, just because you can't do the things that they're forced and asked to do, or even they do just to get their drug of choice because they're addicted to it, you know, you've got to have help to get off of that stuff. Really, you can't step into what we have set up in career training and the holistic care. It'd be very difficult for someone probably just straight out to come straight to us. Many times we get our gals, we're becoming more well known in the state of Kansas. And so we have a number of Kansas girls now. Probably within the last 2 years, we've had a pretty steady pipeline of Kansas girls coming into our program. And typically it's from the rehabs, it's from parole officers, it's from recovery centers, you know, because they've done that first step where they have gotten the serious help, the intentional help with their addiction. Because really before we take a gal into our program, we've become a little better about screening and just saying, okay, who's going to be successful in what we have set up? We don't want it to be another fail for them.
Because you only have so much space available.
That's right. And
Sure.
so they have to be ready. They have to be ready to change their own life. I don't know if you've tried to change somebody's life, but it doesn't work.
Well, certainly when you're right, Deb, when you get the drug usage involved, the worst drug, and I'm old gray-haired guy now, and so I think I've seen through the system the worst drugs from the heroin right on through. The worst drug I think I have ever seen is the meth.
Right.
And it seems to be the most widespread,
Right.
Especially in the area that we're at right
That's right.
now. And so I understand exactly what you're saying. You don't necessarily get the one who has a bad night and they call in the morning and say, I want to come in. What you're getting is the person who's been through the court system. When we come back from break, I'm going to visit with Deb about that, and we're going to go through some of those. You're watching Stories That Matter. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Deb Kluttz, and you are the executive pastor at Westview Church in Manhattan. And if you're just joining the show, you'll be able to catch rebroadcast. You can go to the website and view this. But Deb, what we were talking about right before we cut away to break was, it's not a situation usually where somebody calls and they say, man, I'm being prostituted out and I want to get away. I want to get away from my pimp and I want to go somewhere. The person that you're really receiving is the one who may be involved in the court system or maybe not be involved in the court system, but has already made that step to get out of that lifestyle, and now what they need is a support group. Because many times, I think with the meth, I've seen this lots of times, many times they burn the bridges with the family. They've got back in and the families love you to death, and they'll do everything. But then when you get back into that setting in the home, all of a sudden they come home, well, my rifle's gone, this is gone, these have been sold and stuff.
That's right.
And I see that and hear that a lot from people. And so the family says, you know, we've been burned 3 times and we're not getting burned anymore. We'll support you. And so that may be the person that you get, or it's the probation officer. Am I right? That may call you and say, I've got somebody that I think is really, really motivated, and man, they just need some good help like you can give.
That's right.
Am I right on that?
You're correct. You're correct. So yeah, they wouldn't come just straight out of the drugs and alcohol without a rehab center or recovery center to help them, you know, get that addiction under control. So really the 2 things that we're looking for is the gal ready to change her own life, because only she can change her own life. She has to be the engine. We can put great support around her, all the greatest programs around her and the opportunities around her, but unless she's ready to be the engine of change, it just doesn't work. And then the second thing, she needs to be able. You know, is the trauma too severe? Because all of our girls have PTSD as severe as a war veteran. I mean, it's complex trauma and it's very difficult to deal with. And so where you at with your trauma work as far as the drugs and alcohol? How is your addiction? Is you know, that under control?
As much as they
as
can
much as
be.
they can be. And then the mental illness, you know, has that been diagnosed? And are you on the correct medications that can help you be stable and functioning? Because really by the time they come to us for transitional care, we keep the recovery work moving forward. We partner with Pawnee Mental Health for the drug and alcohol assessments, the mental health assessments, and the therapy. We have a trauma intern, doctoral student at K-State that works with them on their complex trauma.
A lot of resources.
We have a partnership with Via Christi and their Wamego Walk-In Clinic for physicals, and then their primary care is pro bono. So really our services are free. We have a social worker that meets with them once a week for support group with the girls that are in the program. I lead a Bible study weekly. We have got a great structure.
Boy,
and a great program. And then the apprenticeships. So it's a fabulous opportunity. In fact, I've heard some of our girls say this is the opportunity of a lifetime and I do not want to blow it. Because they've been around the block so many times, and like you said, the family is just wore out and their resources have been stolen or just all danger. I mean, there's so many things, and they've had to have tough love with them, and so they have nowhere to go, no one to turn to. Actually, we even go into several strip clubs in the area once a month just to reach out to the gals there and say, you know, there's options. There's options, there's good options. This doesn't, you don't have to be stuck here.
How do you have access to them, Deb?
You know, we've been doing this for 3 years in the clubs, and we were trained by Lions Beauty Queens, which is a ministry in the Kansas City area. And Dana and her crew goes into 19 different clubs on a monthly basis, taking gifts, taking resources, that kind of thing, to just reach out and encourage and say there's hope and there's options.
The club owners, what's their response when you say we want to come in and talk to the girls?
You know, they've been for the most part, they've been very receptive. Now, there are exceptions. We've had club owners that are very suspicious and combative and, you know, just don't trust. And so...
Or don't want to lose the income from not having them.
Right. You know, the sad thing about that, though, Doug, is that it's almost like there's so many girls to replace the ones that leave that I think that's why it's not a big concern many times.
Frustrating sometimes.
It is frustrating.
You're fighting. Tell me again, I know you've already told me, but I've forgotten it. How many are in the house at one time, at a full house?
6.
And then in your support program where you could have families who will take in, will they take a girl with a child or without a child?
Yes.
How many are in that program?
Basically, you know, we only take 1 or 2 at a time with children. It's really tough for the gals with a child. Yeah. I'll just say it's harder because their focus is divided. You know, if the child has a family member or somewhere to go that's a wonderful option, and they can visit and still be very much involved and connected with their child, I often encourage them to take this time to really focus on their recovery, because they will be a better mother once they can get themselves squared away
Sure,
and get
I
themselves
understand
on
it.
solid ground. Because when they have the child with them, many times they're focused on the child. I mean, that's much more pleasant than what they're having to. It's hard work. It's hard work to change your life and face trauma.
And many
all of
times there's
that.
a grandparent who's already stepped in there and said, we'll provide. But boy, they don't trust that parent.
No.
And it's a long road back, but man, you got to start somewhere.
You really do. You know, I tell our ladies so often, because when they first come, a year sounds like a crazy amount of time. But when you think about how long your life has been so far, many times our girls, well, they can be 18 and older. Many of them are mid-20s, mid-30s that do well in our program. And it's like, okay, you've had this many years, and then you have this many years most likely afterwards. We're talking 1 year right here at this time. It's a
Minimal
blip.
amount
It's
of
a
time
blip
for
of
what the
time
rest of it
compared
is.
to what it's going to change the whole trajectory of your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tell me again, how many people have you had come into the program and finish the program and went back to a successful life from there?
We've impacted 40 ladies.
40, that's a lot.
We've
How long
been-
you been doing this, Deb?
We've been doing it 5 years now.
Yeah,
in July.
That's pretty good.
So 40 ladies, and we've had to change our definition of success. We've had 7 graduates. We're getting ready to graduate another gal, so we'll have 8 that have gone from start to finish, clear through the whole program, and done well. We've impacted, however, like I said, 40. And part of that is being able to screen the girls who are really ready and able. That's been very helpful, because then we're just getting gals who probably can be successful in what we have set up. But what we've noticed, which is very interesting, is that almost all of the girls that have been with us, even for a window of time, have not gone back to where they were. As far as the trafficking, the prostituting,
Sure.
the lifestyle. Most of the girls have not returned to that. And to me, that's success.
I would say so too. We're going to take a break. Be right back. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson. I'm visiting with Deb Kluttz from Manhattan, and she's the executive pastor at Westview Community Church. Do you call it pastor or
I do.
director? Because you've got
Pastor.
several titles, don't you?
Well, I'm executive pastor at Westview, but I'm executive director of the Homestead.
Okay. And the Homestead, if you've been watching this show and you want to know how to get a hold of Deb, we're going to put that contact information on the screen right now. And if you want to make a phone call to her, you will be able to visit with Deb. And I tell you that whether you're a family of somebody who is in need or you're the person that's in need, you make the call, because she is sincere. They've got a plan in place that can help you through. And it's a very difficult time, but I can also tell you this, all of us, everybody who has walked has made mistakes and has needed to have a hand to somebody else who will reach out to them and give them a hand up out of that quicksand that they're in. And you've got just the person right here who will be able to do it. Deb, I thank you so much for what you're doing in Manhattan area. And it's not just Manhattan, like you said, you're reaching out across the nation.
That's right.
And that's an awesome job, and I'm very impressed with the support group you build up to be able to take care of it with where the single mom is there with a child, and you've got a provision for that, and you will work them through. And like you said, it's a 1-year program at the most, and you're after success too.
We are.
Deb, I tell you, bud, good job. That's
Thank you.
awesome. That's awesome. Hope you've enjoyed this show. See you next time.